For many years, gardeners have been told that the secret to rich, fertile soil is a well-managed compost heap. Compost is wonderful stuff, there is no doubt about that. It feeds the soil life, improves soil structure, and helps plants to thrive. I have made and used countless tons of it myself. Yet, the idea that you must have a special bin or a dedicated pile, which you carefully build and turn, is not the whole truth. It is one way to make soil food, but it is not the only way. In fact, it might be an unnecessarily complicated step. We often see composting as a separate activity from gardening itself. It happens over there, in a corner of the plot, while the growing happens over here. This separation creates extra work. We gather materials from the garden and kitchen, carry them to the heap, and then, months later, we carry the finished compost back to the beds. This process has become so ingrained in our gardening culture that we rarely stop to question it. Is all this effort truly essential? What if we could achieve the same results, or even better, by working more directly with the soil we already have? The reality is that nature has been making perfect soil for millions of years without a single compost bin in sight. The process of decomposition, of turning organic matter into life-giving humus, is a constant, natural cycle. By insisting on a formal composting system, we are in some ways trying to control and micromanage a process that nature does beautifully on its own. The focus on the compost heap can sometimes distract us from the most important place in our garden, the soil itself. The soil is where the magic happens, and it is perfectly capable of doing its own composting. Thinking differently about compost opens up new possibilities. It allows us to simplify our gardening and reduce our workload significantly. Instead of viewing compost as a product we must first create in a pile, we can start to see it as a process that happens directly on our garden beds. This shift in perspective is the foundation of a simpler, more effective way of building soil fertility. It is about feeding the soil life right where it lives, letting the worms, bacteria, and fungi do the work for us. This is not about abandoning the principles of composting, but about applying them in a more natural and efficient way. Making good compost the traditional way is a real labor of love. It requires knowledge, patience, and a strong back. First, you need to collect your materials. This means separating your kitchen scraps into greens and gathering your garden waste, or browns. You need a good balance. Too much green material, like grass clippings, and your heap becomes a slimy, smelly mess. Too much brown material, like woody stems or cardboard, and the decomposition process slows to a crawl, taking a year or more to break down. This balancing act can be tricky for new gardeners to get right. Then comes the physical work of building the heap. You must layer your greens and browns carefully, like making a giant lasagna. This helps to ensure there is enough air, moisture, and food for the microorganisms that do the decomposing. If the pile is too dry, you need to water it. If it is too wet, you might need to add more dry, brown materials. It is a constant process of adjustment and observation. For many people with busy lives, this level of management can feel like another chore on an already long list, turning a joyful hobby into a burden. The most demanding part of traditional composting is the turning. To speed up decomposition and create an evenly finished product, you are advised to turn the pile every few weeks or months. This means using a garden fork to move the outer layers to the inside and the core to the outside. It is heavy, sweaty work. For a large heap, it can take a good hour of strenuous effort. This is often the point where many gardeners give up, leaving their heaps to sit untended. The result is often a half-finished compost that is not ready to be used on the garden. Finally, after all that waiting and working, you need to harvest your compost. This involves sieving it to remove any large, undecomposed pieces, which then have to go back into the next pile to continue breaking down. You are left with a smaller amount of fine, dark compost than the mountain of material you started with. While the result is valuable, the journey to get there is long and filled with challenges. It is no wonder that many people find the idea of composting intimidating. They see the work involved and decide it is simply too much trouble. Now, let us consider how nature builds soil. If you take a walk in an ancient woodland, you will not find a tidy compost heap anywhere. There are no gardeners turning piles or checking moisture levels. Instead, you will find a deep, rich layer of soil, teeming with life. This soil has been created over centuries by a simple, continuous process. Trees and plants drop their leaves, twigs, and fruits directly onto the ground. Animals leave their droppings. Old plants die and fall where they stood. All this organic matter lands on the surface of the soil. This layer of material on the forest floor is what we call a natural mulch. It serves many purposes. It protects the soil beneath from the baking sun and the force of heavy rain, preventing erosion and moisture loss. As this surface layer slowly decomposes, it provides a steady supply of food for an incredible diversity of life within the soil. Worms, beetles, fungi, and countless microscopic organisms come up to the surface to feed on this bounty. They are nature's composting crew, working tirelessly day and night without any instructions from us. The key difference is that decomposition happens from the top down. The worms and other soil creatures pull the organic matter down into the soil, creating channels and tunnels as they go. Their digestive processes break down the material into simpler nutrients that plant roots can absorb. Their excretions, known as worm casts, are one of the most fertile substances on Earth. This constant activity builds a beautiful, dark, and crumbly soil structure that is full of air and holds water perfectly. Nature does not compost in a heap, it composts in place. This process is continuous and wonderfully efficient. There is no turning, no layering, and no waiting for a batch to be ready. The nutrients are released slowly and steadily, exactly where the plants need them. The soil is being fed and improved all year round. By observing this simple yet powerful system, we can learn a valuable lesson. If we want to build healthy soil in our own gardens, perhaps the best way is to mimic nature. We can stop trying to manage decomposition in a box and simply let the soil do what it does best. So, how can we apply nature's wisdom in our own vegetable patches and flower beds? The answer is simple. We compost in place. This is often called surface composting or mulching. It means we stop taking organic matter away to a compost heap and instead apply it directly to the surface of our garden beds. This method is the ultimate shortcut. It cuts out the middleman, the compost heap, and delivers the food straight to the soil life. It is the foundation of the no-dig gardening method that I have used successfully for decades. This approach really transforms our view of garden waste. Dead leaves, old plant stems, and even kitchen peelings are no longer problems to be dealt with. They become valuable resources, a direct food source for our soil. Instead of piling them up in a corner, we can simply lay them on the soil around our growing plants. This layer of organic matter acts just like the leaf litter on the forest floor. It protects the soil, conserves moisture, and suppresses weeds. It is a mulch that feeds the soil as it breaks down. This method saves an enormous amount of time and energy. Imagine finishing a crop of lettuces. Instead of pulling the plants up, disturbing the soil, you can simply cut them at the base, leaving the roots in the ground to decompose. Then, you can add a layer of compost, leaf mold, or even just chopped up plant debris on the surface before planting your next crop. The worms and other organisms will get to work immediately, breaking down the material and incorporating it into the soil. You are feeding the soil web directly, and in return, it is creating the perfect growing environment for your plants. It is a beautiful, self-sustaining cycle. This is not a new or radical idea. It is the oldest method of farming in the world. For centuries, people have understood that returning organic matter to the soil is the key to lasting fertility. By adopting this composting in place method, we are simply rediscovering a more natural and intuitive way to garden. It requires less effort, but it delivers faster and often better results. Your soil becomes richer and easier to work with year after year. The hard work of turning compost piles is replaced by the simple, gentle act of feeding the soil from the surface. Getting started with surface composting is incredibly easy. The main principle is to cover the soil with a layer of organic material. The best material to start with is compost if you have it. A layer of about 5 centimeters or 2 inches spread across the surface of your beds once a year is a fantastic starting point. You do not need to dig it in, simply lay it on top. The worms and weather will do the work of incorporating it into the soil. This annual feed is often all your garden needs for the entire growing season. If you do not have a supply of finished compost, do not worry. You can use a wide range of other materials. Autumn leaves are a wonderful resource. You can collect them and spread them directly on your beds as a thick mulch over winter. Well-rotted manure, old straw, grass clippings in thin layers, and even shredded cardboard or paper can be used. The key is to add a mix of materials if you can. This provides a more balanced diet for the soil life. The worms are not fussy eaters. They will appreciate whatever you can provide for them. A common concern is what to do with tougher materials, like cabbage stalks or woody prunings. For these, it is best to chop them into smaller pieces with shears or a spade before laying them on the surface. This increases the surface area and helps them break down faster. You can place these tougher materials at the bottom of your mulch layer, with finer materials on top. Over time, even the most stubborn woody stems will be softened by rain and consumed by fungi and other decomposers, disappearing into the soil. Another question is how to handle weeds. A thick layer of mulch is brilliant at suppressing them. It blocks the light, preventing many weed seeds from germinating. For any persistent perennial weeds, like couchgrass or bindweed, you can first lay a layer of cardboard on the soil before adding your compost or other mulch on top. The cardboard will smother the weeds, and by the time it is rotted away, the weeds will be gone. This method allows you to create a clean, fertile bed ready for planting, all without any digging. The benefits of this approach become clear very quickly. Your soil structure improves dramatically. As the worms and microbes digest the surface mulch, they create a network of channels that aerate the soil and improve drainage. The soil becomes darker, spongier, and full of life. It can hold more water during dry spells and drains better during wet periods, making your plants more resilient to extreme weather. This living soil is also better at suppressing diseases, as the beneficial microorganisms outcompete the harmful ones. It is a healthier system all round. This method saves an incredible amount of time. Think of all the hours spent turning compost, wheeling it around the garden, and digging it into the soil. All of that energy is saved. Your main job becomes adding a fresh layer of mulch once or twice a year. This might take a few hours, but it replaces countless hours of more strenuous work. Weeding is also drastically reduced. The mulch layer smothers most annual weeds, and any that do appear are easily pulled from the soft, crumbly soil. Gardening becomes less of a battle and more of a pleasure. You can use this method in any garden. In a small patio garden, you can top dress your pots and containers with a layer of compost. In a suburban back garden, you can mulch your vegetable beds and the soil around your shrubs and flowers. Even on a larger allotment scale, laying down organic matter on the surface is far more efficient than trying to dig it into a large area. You simply feed the soil from the top, and it looks after itself. It is a universal principle that works everywhere, on all soil types. Ultimately, this is about a shift in mindset. It is about trusting nature and working with it, not against it. The soil is not an inert substance to be manipulated, but a living ecosystem that we need to nurture. By ditching the compost bin and feeding the soil directly, we empower this ecosystem to do what it does best. We become facilitators of a natural process, rather than managers of a complicated one. I encourage you to try it. Leave a small patch of your garden undug this year. Cover it with mulch, plant into it, and see what happens. You might be surprised at how much easier and more productive your gardening can be.